Thank you all so much for coming. It's fantastic to see everybody here. We're really excited about this exhibition. We're really excited about all the artwork that came in. We were really bowled over to see it, and it's fantastic to see it all in the space. What we're going to do is Sean Clark, who was the judge for the open call, wanted to just talk a little bit about the work that he selected, why he selected it, and why he thinks, I guess, we've got a really good balance of representation of practices that use connective technology, which is Sean's area of expertise. Also, we're going to invite John Costa, who a lot of you know, to talk a little bit about his work, which is a retrospective of the work he's been doing on community journalism for quite a long time, and talk about how that got started and how the internet empowered that. Then we're all going to watch Hackers for anyone who is interested in sticking around. Full disclosure, our VHS player died about an hour ago, which is heartbreaking because I watched it through loads of times. Maybe I broke it. We do have a digital file, so we are still going to watch it, but the magic won't quite be the same. But it'll be great though, it'll be really exciting. Thank you again for coming. This is really exciting for us. I did also just quickly want to say about this exhibition, you're going to see as you walk around work submitted from all across the country really, which was something that was super exciting. What you will also see is some work by 3 artists scattered around that took part in a AR boot camp that we ran. And what we did here was we put them all in a room for 2 days with a really fantastic artist called Nick Delap, who worked with them to kind of realise some ideas in AR that they had. So we had Miriam Bean, who's got some work over here, Lena, who has some work over there, and Hannah, who's not with us tonight, but you can scan her work here. That's one of the things that we're really interested in doing with New Media Art Club, is creating these exhibitions that bring people together, but also creating opportunities for artists to really develop their practice and start to realise fantastic ideas that we could all achieve with technology. So, I'm going to hand over to Sean.
Thank you very much.
And tell us why you picked the work.
I'm going to try and talk for 5 minutes on some notes that I've only just made. But I've got the habit of speaking a bit longer, so I'm going to try and limit myself to 10 maximum. I think also we should start by saying that you've just, in case you didn't know, you just heard Sean Carroll, who, along with Nush over there, have run New Media Art Club. And they said anything you should do after this
I'm
event,
John Costa
from
the Independent Heritage Network, and I'm at COMPUTALA, an exhibition that's on for 3 weeks at the LCB Depot of Digital Art, with my own exhibit for the Museum of Community Media, which is the Archive of Citizen's Eye.
Tell us a little bit about what COMPUTALA is about.
COMPUTALA is a 3-week exhibition about digital art here at the LCB Depot in Leicester. And so there's a whole range of submissions from people. There's some things you'll recognise like teletext and some photographs taken on a Game Boy through to some sort of Raspberry Pis and Arduinos doing drawings and stuff. There's some AI things in the corner there, some sort of classic sort of digital art, lots of audio things to listen to, and it's great. I think it's just really visually interesting as well to bring in. Again, for all the family, I think any young person that's interested in digital creations and stuff. I put a submission in for the Museum of Community Media, so I've got an archive of Citizen's Eye, and Sean Clark, who was one of the people doing the judging, actually said that because we'd got like all of our early computers and cameras and smartphones from sort of 2008, 2009 when we started Citizen's Eye, he actually gave that nod to the sort of connective technology side of what they were looking to do, because we were talking about that sort of early days of the internet for your average person, not the sort of people who are in the know, but the sort of the man in the street that could go out and buy sort of an iPhone 3 or an iPad or one of those white Macs, and then start looking, particularly what we did with, how we could use that technology, that sort of utopian view, I guess, of Web 1.0 of, hey, we could make the world a better place because this allows people to have a voice and be able to be connected. I'm not sure that's necessarily the fact nearly sort of 17, 18 years later, the way the internet is, but certainly in those early days, that's how, looking back now at all the stuff, I get quite nostalgic and a little bit emotional about it, because it was like, we did some really good stuff.
So the theme of the exhibition generally is kind of not necessarily using the latest kit, the latest platforms and the latest technology, but about going back over digital technologies and reusing and revisiting the kind of creative potential that they still have.
Yeah, that kind of sort of, like you said, connectivity, sort of connective technology and the internet, and, does it bring us together? Does it connect us? And I guess you look at some of the artworks here, and I look at it very much as about someone sort of, using something to push it forward, looking at innovating all the time. And I guess being sort of, the curator of 4 independent museums now and an archive and stuff, I look at what we did there with Citizens Eye, and I remember a conversation with you about, during COVID, should we bring Citizens Eye back, and then looking at all the things that were still needed that Citizens Eye probably didn't do. But we've taken the assumption that, it did a lot of things. I think what it did is it just allowed people to feel as if their voice mattered. So, the mainstream media went very much around like, we couldn't possibly let ordinary people to create the news. And as we both know, without mentioning any names or organisations, there was a lot of pushback against citizens journalism and who was qualified or, capable of saying anything. And then user-generated content came along as a way of trying to pigeonhole it by the mainstream media of owning it. And I think we just pushed through all of that with the 20 newsagents we had, where suddenly it was people, particularly on the margins, that were on the receiving end of all of this mainstream media. This is what these people are like. And we see it quite a lot now, don't we, with immigrants and migration and all these kind of people on the boats, that, if these people actually had their own way of telling their story about why they were coming, and what was attractive to them about our country, in a way that was not political and not sort of clickbait or also playing to the crowd, then the chances are it's only a short distance between, me and those people if the roles were reversed. I remember last week I met with 2 guys from Afghanistan, one's a journalist and one's an actor, and I said to them, can I buy you a coffee? And they were like, no, I'll buy you a coffee. And they were like, why did you insist on buying us a coffee? I said, I'd like to think if the roles were reversed and we were sitting in Kabul now, and I was talking to you about being a freelance journalist and what I'd done with Citizens Eye, and could you help me kind of get my foot in the ladder because I've got refugee status and I can now leave to remain, stay in Afghanistan as someone who's fled Britain, that you'd buy me a coffee as well. And they kind of really, it took all the politics and all the mainstream media out of it, down to being, just 3 blokes sitting around having a coffee, and one was in the very fortunate position of being in a country where these other people could actually flee and feel safe. And then the whole conversation very much was around the role of technology and art and media creation and films, and obviously the actor brought him in on the conversation about how do we work together on a sort of, cultural heritage project to be able to get people to understand. And I still remember what the Ukrainians said to me when we gave them those opportunities in the Textiles Festival and Military History Live to do stuff. They said, what do you want us to put on our table? We don't have anything about the war fighting. I said, well, that's what the mainstream media is focused on. Ukraine is at war. Now tell me on your table the reason why you're prepared to fight. And then, of course, you get all the textiles and the history and the folklore and the food and the music and all that sort of stuff. And that's what I said to the guys from Afghanistan. At the end of the day, we see Afghanistan as being this way. Come and show us what it's really like. What's the 100 years of history of Afghanistan? Yes, conflicts defined it, and you're in this particular situation. But for 20 years, rightly or wrongly, you were able to educate women, you were able to work, and you were able to, expand your healthcare and schools and all that. And we tend to think about this is this now. And you go, well, but in recent memory it was this. So what is it about that we still need to be fighting for? Otherwise we'll just get into that news cycle of leaving things to be depressing. And I still think that things like literature, art, fashion, music, not always done so well maybe with TikTok and popular culture. It kind of simplifies it overly simplifies it, but there's still a conversation starter by coming in here and looking around something here where there's something to draw from each piece, and it's people are so hesitant about having an opinion in case it upsets someone, whereas art's great because it's you can turn around and say it's terrible or you love it, and then the person next to you go, what are you talking about? That's dreadful. But for some reason you can stand by an art piece and have that conversation without people getting too upset. You did it on social media. You'd all be fighting.
It's funny that Elon Musk is now saying we are the media, and which was something that you and I were advocating a long time ago, and recognised the shift. Do you think that potential around the time of Citizen's Eye has been borne out, or do you think it's been a missed opportunity? What's your thoughts on that, looking back and looking at the situation presently now, about the kind of tools that people have to be able to discuss things and engage with things? Do you think that potential that was there with Web 2.0 is something we need to maybe revisit?
That's a good question, isn't it? I mean, I think for me, in a very simplistic way, when I look back, it was a means to an end, to set up something that gave people a voice. And because it focused on the people that were on the margins who didn't have a voice, giving a voice to the voiceless type thing, or a utopian way of looking at it, it was looking at technology being able to be used to be able to engage people in a conversation, but from the point of view of this is me, rather than I'm responding to something about me. I think when I finished it in 2014, I closed it in 2014. I made the conscious decision to close it because it was drifting, because we were getting less interest and engagement through the community media training school and stuff, because people weren't interested in understanding the ethics. Because we weren't journalists, they didn't think that ethics was of any value or that kind of stuff. Well, of course, what then has happened in the last 10 years is that kind of, I can say whatever I want to you, Rob, within context, but, the chances are on the street you're going to get into a fisticuffs. Well, online, why is that going to be any different? You say something that upsets me or say something personal about me, then we get into fisticuffs online. So I think what's happened is we needed to go through everything with Web 2.0 being about money, being about selfishness, being about me, being about, us making our own decisions, in order to get to the point now where we can be having a conversation about social media in a way that, what was it that was utopian about bringing people together in Web 1.0 that was quite clearly lost in Web 2.0, that as we move forward, how do we do it? So I think, maybe as we are on the media and, people suddenly wake up to the fact that, we're owned by the mainstream media, we're owned by billionaires, and, everything was going on with America and tech and stuff like that, that we might get to the point where suddenly some of those values that those of us on the margins remember from the very beginning are able to come back again. So if we were to do Citizens Eye 2.0, it wouldn't just be the bigger, better version that's all about us and monetising it and stuff like Web 2.0. We've had to leave that one behind in order to come back to the point where we can actually do something about it, because people are like, oh right, yeah, it didn't work, did it? You know what I mean? It is bad for your mental health. Oh, it is exploitative. It is kind of not what I thought it was going to be. So I think, for me, having that 10-year gap, it's not about, oh, let's bring it back because there's an opportunity. It's about bring it back because people have naturally come to the point with, we didn't need that 10 years of going through and all of the issues that we've created. So, okay, right, now you'll have a proper conversation with me, because you weren't ready in 2014. You were too busy trying to move ahead and monetise it. And I think a lot of people, if they're honest, there were people that were involved in Citizen's Eye and stuff, particularly some of the younger guys that were probably quite angry with me about closing Citizen's Eye, and why don't I do this and why don't I do that? Well, it weren't about that. So if you want to do that, go off and do it yourself, and I'll happily help you, And I'm not going to get into or mention any names or get into it anymore. But I think, if those people were honest and came back for a conversation there, it'd be very much around like, well, it would have gone off and become something completely different to what it is now, So I look back on some of the like iPadio and audio boom, ways of creating audio that we had then, sort of long before Instagram came along and all that sort of stuff. Well, you go on there now to try and find any of their archival stuff. They're all now big technology companies that are in, Silicon Valley doing big stuff. So even that early stuff that they got excited about that kind of finding a voice and all that, have all kind of sold out in inverted commas. I don't mean to get myself into trouble here, and they're into monetization and blah 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 and this sort of kind of stuff. Whereas for me, I was never driven by that. Citizens Eye was never about being the best or the first or the biggest or the largest. And even when someone came to me and said, "Look, I'd like to set one up in Derby, can I franchise it?" And I said, "Well, what colour do you want the logo?" And we changed the logo to pink and sent it to him, and they were doing stuff with things. People go like, "Oh, you moved it into Citizens Eye Derby." I was like, "Well, yeah, but Simon runs it, and we support them and stuff, but we don't get any money from it because it was never about licensing and all this kind of do all this and blah blah." I was like, "Well, franchising, I'm no interest in that." The reason Citizens Eye worked was because we were in Leicester, and it was about Leicester and Leicestershire and people that we spoke to and knew and met every Tuesday at a news cafe, and we went to local events. We were never anything bigger than it was meant to be. Now that might have been because of money, and if I'd have had a car, could we have gone further? And if I had more money, would we have bought more equipment? But yeah, it still wouldn't have worked any better than it did. The fact that it had nothing was the reason it worked. It was simple.
Second to last question. What's your favourite bit of kit that you've got on display?
Oh, it's got to be, without a doubt, the Nokia N96 phone. I remember getting that thinking I was the nuts, mate. That was it. I mean, I think I had a particular element of swag when that was in my pocket. And it's interesting, I can't find it now, but there was a PDF that I had, colour brochure. One of those things like when you were a kid and you really keep it, and suddenly there's someone, and then your gran throws it away and you get really upset with the Radio Times or something. You can see that's happened to me, can't you? As a collector of stuff. No wonder I ended up with 4 museum. This PDF, it had all about that the N96 was specifically designed for citizens journalism, and it was this and it was that and all that, and it was aimed specifically at. I remember getting that phone just thinking, that's it, Citizens Eye's arrived. And I used to do all my filming on it and all that. And my favourite story with it is we were at the Special Olympics outside the Walker Stadium, as it was then, King Power Stadium. And I was we'd positioned Citizens Eye for the 5 days of the Special Olympics in 2009 in Leicester. And I was there, and someone said to me, "Oh, you can interview Laurie McMenemy." So people might not know who he is now, but he was like a big football manager back in the day, and he was like the head of SOGB. And he started talking, and my partner Tina had gone off to get some food and was ringing me to see whether I wanted a bacon sandwich, and the interview cut out. I remember just carrying on casually, spoke to him for about 20 minutes, but I only got like the first 3 minutes of it. And so I put the first 3 minutes out because I said, well, that's the best thing that he said, not the other 17 minutes. And then from then on, any time I do anything, absolutely any time I do anything, I always put it on airplane mode.
The early lessons of citizens journalism. So last one is where can people find out more about the exhibition and more about your work?
Well, you can find out about COMPUTALA. It's on for the next 3 weeks, so it's open Monday to Friday from 11 till 4 every day. On the final Friday the 31st of January, there'll be an evening event, closing event, and that's part of Last Friday, which is a big event anyway that LCB Depot hosts every month. So just go on social media, you'll be able to find it Last Friday, or look for COMPUTALA. My stuff is on the museumofcommunitymedia.wordpress.com website, or go through to .media centre or the Independent Heritage Network website, and there's links to it there. And come in and have a conversation. And if you've got any memories of Citizens Eye that you'd like to record, or you've got any kind of memorabilia, I could see all the badges that I put on the top. They've all gone, so I still believe in that. Jennifer Jones, as she always used to say to us about badges and stickers. So having badges and stickers, I think that kind of old school way of promoting things, even if you've got something that's all about digital technology and cutting edge innovation and stuff, you give someone a sticker and a badge to wear, they still love those things, and it's great. You know what I mean? It's been an opportunity with the exhibition coming along to push me to make sure that I do look at the review. I mean, we've got 1,500 films on YouTube, so I've got down to a playlist of 219, and I had to pick 5 for Jazz, the digital artist Jazz Singh, to create his own versions of it. So we're now looking to revisit the archive, not only to make it searchable, but actually usable and relevant and alive, and how things have still changed, even what we were reporting on then. 15,000 photographs on Flickr. Going through those. There's lots of photos of banners, and there's lots of photos of people working for organisations that they don't work for anymore and probably don't want their photo on there. So it's then about, what's relevant. So hopefully out of that 15,000 we'll get to about 2,000 photographs of the 7 years. And I've got so much printed material and ephemera and, Wave newspapers and Citizens' Eye pages pulled out and stuff, and it's almost trying to go through and say, well, actually, do we have a whole collection of that, or do we have any gaps, and then putting some calls out for people to come and help us fill those gaps in the collection for the timeline, that narrative of 7 years, and then start interviewing some of the key people like yourself and Tina Barton, Simon Parker, Julian Harrison, some of the younger members as well, if they're up for being interviewed about what we've done and stuff, because 10 years have gone, but I think there's still a lot of warmth and empathy for what Citizens' Eye was, and even just pulling those 3 display cabinets together there, and there's pictures of people there on some of our printed material. You go, I wonder what they're doing. I'm not in touch with them anymore, and they've all been touched by Citizens' Eye and have all been involved in whatever the 20 news agencies they were in. I think we had an eco-eye there as well. We wrote about turning up at an earthquake with a dustpan and brush. It was a bit sort of our approach to climate change. Well, 10 years on, that quote's pretty much stood the test of time, isn't it? So it's interesting.
Yeah, maybe being a massive institution, there's only so much you can put on the campus, and also how nice to see what we're doing flowers and things in this garden, but it wasn't an outlet that was the internet, where the hardware was